Welcome back to Around the Block podcast with TPCAR. If you are joining us for the first time, please give us a follow and download your favorite episode. Hopefully, this is your favorite episode because it's probably going to be my favorite episode. Oh, by the way, I'm Jasmine Jefferson, your host. But with us today, we have Dr. Jessica Lautz from NAR, National Association of Realtors. She is the Deputy Chief Economist and Vice President of Research. And when I say I'm excited, I don't even know how to even say even more how excited I am because I've already fangirled you twice today, plus in person. We met and you were here earlier this year, which I thought was 2 years ago, because we've already discussed that 2025 has been, it's not even 25. You know what planet are we even on? I have no idea. But nonetheless, we have Dr. Lautz here with us. We're very, very excited to have you here. And as you can see and hear, we're on Zoom because you are on the road. And it is right now time for you to be in Chicago. Why don't you tell us what you're doing in Chicago right now, and then we'll jump into the good stuff.
Yeah, I thank you so much for having me, truly. I think that we were mind melding because we're wearing like the exact same color today. So looking forward to fall here. I'm excited to be with you. So I'm in Chicago today because it is our Leadership Summit week at NAR. So we have state and local association presidents and AEs that come in for the week for training. And then there's committee camp. So all the chairs and vice chairs of NAR committees come in, and then there's also a YPN conference, a commercial day, and ending the week with IOI, which is the innovation conference. So I am here speaking to a couple of different groups throughout the week and having meetings. So excited to join you all virtually, though, from my hotel room with a very blurred background because we're not going to look at how I live out a suitcase.
Yes, I can't even imagine, but it sounds like a very exciting week. I know that some of our leadership has just returned. Our executive officer, Sean Martin, our incoming president, Jen Hawkins, and a couple other people also were there. And today in our board meeting actually talked about some of the things that you shared. So thank you very much for that. I do want to talk a little bit about your day-to-day role with NAR because we see you and it's usually a video or you're there to give us a recap or a prediction, but you're doing more than that. So can you tell us some of the things that might be a surprise to people?
Yeah, so I think honestly, there's a lot of people who might be surprised that NAR actually even has a research group. So we are a team of nerds who are putting out a lot of information on a daily basis. Truly, we are quite nerdy. In fact, they were passing around nerd shirts that they should buy off of an account the other day, and they're like, "Well, if we do a bulk order, we can get them on sale." And I was like, "Y'all are just like uber nerds,
I
okay?"
love this.
That's cool. So that's amazing. But we have a lot of research that we're putting out. So some of it you all publicly see, and you'll see it in the news, like our existing home sales or our Realtors Confidence Index, because it's out there every month. So that does get press. But there's some things that go beyond the radar, behind the radar, that you never see that are informing really big decisions. Like, what should we spend money on? What do our members actually like? Did they like a conference like this? How would they like to see it tweaked? Because without that feedback, we really can't tailor the programs that we're providing. So that's what our folks are working on a daily basis. And I'm overseeing a group that not only does survey research, but also focus groups too. So really getting in-depth research and digging into people's minds on topics.
Nice. So feel free to send me a nerd shirt or the link. Max can give you my contact info or put us in contact because I too am a nerd and I just am so fascinated by the work that you all do as economists. You're the only female economist that I have had the privilege of seeing presented. And I got so excited when I saw you at our joint event there earlier this year that I think I was being a little silly. I was like, oh my gosh, do you guys have like economist conferences? Is this, what do you guys talk about? And you're like, economics. So, and did we take a picture?
We did.
Where is it at? Nobody gave me a copy. Max, I need a copy of the picture. We have fun with Mac.
Somewhere on social.
Okay, I'll find it, but I'm very excited that you're here. I did not know about the research element of it. So what I hear is that the surveys that come from NAR are very important.
Please do them.
It behooves us, right?
Yes, it does. Because honestly, we do take that research and we go and talk to every single group, committees, work groups at NAR. So when they're making a decision and they're putting that together, we're actually taking member feedback. And without that, it's pretty pointless for staff to be putting something together and we don't know what y'all want.
Right, because then you're left to guess.
Correct.
So earlier I had mentioned that you're from Washington State. And why don't you share definitely where you're from, and a little bit about your career journey and how you got into real estate economics specifically. What is economics? It's like a it's like blistics and economics together. But anywho,
It's not a straight line. I don't necessarily know that anyone's path is a straight line, but until middle school, we lived in Burien, and then we moved to the other side of the mountains to Cleellum, little tiny town there. If y'all have
Love
driven through
Cleolum, it's
that,
beautiful.
yeah. On the way to Lake Chelan or to go skiing, you may have stopped there. And then I went to Central Washington University for my undergrad. Got a scholarship there. I kept going on my path and ended up doing my master's in DC. I wanted to do public policy. I wanted to collect data and inform government decisions. And I really enjoyed doing that. As a master's degree, and then I found myself at NAR after a couple of jobs where I had been working in education, but I really found that housing was where I wanted to be. So I've been at NAR forever since
Mhm.
2007. While I was there, I actually decided to get a doctorate. So I had been to real estate economics meetings, and frankly, I saw a lot of men stand up there and say things, and I thought, I thought I could go and do that. And so I decided to get my doctorate later in life. It wasn't a direct path. I was not 19 years old. And I actually got it in the UK. I found a program that would accept my master's and take that as my coursework. So I didn't have to redo a master's degree all over again. So I worked at NAR, but I flew back and forth a few times and went to classes on the weekends and took a lot of red eyes. But I got it done. So yeah,
you fly a lot.
I've a lot of miles.
Okay, I have a personal question.
Mhm.
What is your preferred method of payment for your flights, and do you do any points programs?
Oh, do I do points programs? We've established I am a nerd. Are you kidding me? American Airlines, which I've attached then my Marriott and my Hyatt to. Did you know that you can attach your Uber to your Marriott so that you can get
No.
feedback? Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 So you can essentially go on vacation for free if you really try hard.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Pro tip, did we know we were going to get that type of information today? We did not, but thank you. So now we know we need to always ask the economist who travels their favorite method of points collecting. You are a points collector. I was going to ask you about market analysis, but I feel like I want to ask you more about um, the impact of economic factors, because that's a lot of what we're talking about right now, how the economy is doing and what are those impacts, because there's so much information in the news right now. And for you, this being your career, you're not a news anchor, you're not looking for shocking headlines. It's like you're up studying the data as a profession every day. Tell us what some of those impacts are.
Well, headlines are really problematic sometimes. They really don't tell the whole truth. And you all know, I talked about Burien and Cleella. I mean, those are two vastly different markets in the state of Washington. And I have to say that even since I lived there, both of those markets have changed dramatically. So you all are the local experts. And that's one of the things that becomes a problem is when I talk about the national market and when I look at national numbers, they're not telling the whole truth. Something that is telling the whole truth, for instance, is interest rates. Yes, the lock in effect is real, but we also know that a lot of people people have a lot of housing equity that they can make housing trades and maybe even find an affordable property paying all cash for that next purchase if they're moving to a more affordable area. And so that's something that goes under the radar as we talk about the lock-in effect and we talk about higher interest rates in comparison to pandemic times, but we don't talk about all the ins and outs. And I think that gets really important to talk about that.
Yeah, agreed. Also, trends. So, what are the current trends that you would like us to be more knowledgeable about or you think is not being talked about enough? And how would that influence or how do you anticipate these will evolve in the near future?
Well, we tend to blame millennials for everything. We tend to think that they're not buying homes when I'm not going to do everyone's math for you. But frankly, at 43, which is the oldest millennial now, I'll just say it as someone who is on the older cusp there of millennials that's getting into middle age. And so many of these individuals are repeat home buyers in the market. They are active in the home buying market. They do have kids, they're out there. And so that's something that's quite important to take note of is that the young adults you're talking about are probably Gen Zers at this point. If you are blaming millennials for anything, let's stop that. Not that we should shift blame to Gen Zers. We shouldn't do that either. The other thing that I think is important too is don't discount the demographics. I think it's important. As we talk about demographics, to know that yes, birth rates are down, yes, marriage rates are down. You know what? That makes a different type of home buyer. That makes a home buyer who may be single. In fact, about 30% of home buyers are single. That just means they have to fight harder in today's housing affordability and inventory crisis to find that right home. But it doesn't mean they're not there. And I think that's important to take note of too, is those myths are really out there when we talk about demographics and they get political really quickly, but they shouldn't because we're talking about home buying.
Something that I've noticed about you is you do talk about demographics in a very um, raw way. I feel like you don't shy away from the topics of, what's needed. Here's the facts, here's the data, this is a problem. And you speak truth to how we got to the problem. I just wanted to give you credit for that and also ask, or was that a natural passion or what has drawn you? Because I've seen you do it multiple times. I heard you talk about it here in Washington. And then when I was in DC in May, you also came into a housing forum and you were talking about housing disparities. And typically, when I hear economists talk about what's happening in the housing market, they don't talk about disparities as much as you do. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that when we talk about housing affordability and inventory, we can talk a lot about the success. We can talk a lot about how people are earning that housing equity and they can pay all cash for their next purchase if they want to. Not everyone, but a lot of people can. But I think if we don't talk about the disparities, I don't know what the point is because I think we're losing a lot of people into not being able to achieve the American dream right now because of housing affordability. And if we don't talk about that, if we don't address those issues, then I, we're leaving a lot of people behind.
So, along those lines, as I mentioned, I see you talk about this differently. Where does that passion come from? Because it feels passionate.
I am passionate about it. Some of it comes from my roots. I remember when my mom was a first-time home buyer as a single mom. My father had just passed away, and she was able to buy that house in Burien. And I remember dancing with her. This is really dating me, but we've already established how old I am. We were dancing in our house, and there was nothing in there except for I think fast food and a boombox. But that was really exciting to be able to have that moment with my mom and my brother to have a place to live. And we had moved around a lot, and we did not live in nice apartments for her to scrape and save and to get there. And she was a custodian for Seattle Public Schools, so that was really hard for her to be able to do that. If I put that in context right now, I think it's really hard for me to imagine a single mom with two kids being able to buy a single family home. in a suburban area right now as a custodian. I think it's really hard for me to be able to fathom that when we look at Americans' housing crisis right now. And so that is something that's really important to me. But I think that when I look at the data, you can see stark disparities. You can see them by age, you can see them by race. And there's a lot of people who are struggling for that American dream.
Right. Yeah. And so much it is tied into owning a home. Thank you for sharing that. I think as real estate professionals, we could probably do a better job of sharing our own personal home stories. We talk about our value proposition as far as what we can do to represent folks, but I love your home story. I was right there with you dancing along. I don't know, were we having Wendy's, Arby's, Jack in a Box? I don't know. Okay, nice. But that empty space, the echo of the boombox, the sheer joy, and I'm sure you couldn't even put into words what your mom was feeling and thinking in that moment. Like there was your joy, but her joy of what that meant. So thank you for sharing that. So we don't have too much time. I have a ton of questions. Maybe we can talk to you again at another time, but I do want to talk about some of your thoughts on policy influence. I'm happy to learn that that is part of your passion and background. And we all know it is about to be September, which means we have like 65 some odd days, 70 days until the elections. Is there anything or any thoughts that you have for us on the elections that you would like to share?
Well, I will happily say that NAR does not take a stance when it comes to the presidential election. I will also happily say that this spring I had the opportunity actually to represent NAR and testify to Congress. And that was one of the biggest career things that I've ever done in my life. I was terrified, but it was a huge, huge moment for me. And one of the things that we talked about was the proposed settlement, and what is the impact going to be, the potential impact to first-time homebuyers, to minority homebuyers who are not white, to veteran homebuyers, because at that moment, it was not clear what the impact could be to veteran homebuyers who were prohibited for paying for their buyer representation. Now, this does seem to have some clarification, and that's certainly a good thing. What I'll say that leading up into the election is that we have a tremendous advocacy group, and they are doing so much work. If you're not involved and you're not aware, please do check it out because advocacy is one of the biggest member benefits that we have, aside from research, because we're amazing. But we do a lot of the work to help them too. So.
Absolutely. So you did mention that uh, policy work is part of what you do. Could you talk a little bit more about how does your work influence policy decisions working within real estate? So you were testifying. Um, just give us an example of how does that affect things?
Yeah, so one of the biggest concerns that we had thinking about the settlement, the proposed settlement, was how could this impact veteran homebuyers? Because we know that 10% of recent homebuyers in the last year used the VA loan. If we look at that by race, it's actually 22% of Black homebuyers used a VA loan. But we also know that with the proposed settlement, that they were prohibited for paying for their buyers, not because of the settlement, but because of the rules of the VA administration, that they were prohibited for paying for their buyers' representation. Now that is clarified. The VA administration has clarified that, but it was use of this data that told a very clear story that we would be missing a lot of veteran homebuyers moving forward if that wasn't clarified. And so they were able to use those data points to really make sure that that would be okay moving forward.
Thank you for that. And I do know that that was a big push while we were down in DC, or down, over, kind of down. There's a little bit of a slant there. Was to talk to our lawmakers about, the impact that it had. And I think we were all surprised to find out it did not take an act of Congress to make changes to the VA rules. And when we brought that up to them, what more could be said? So thank you for testifying on our behalf. That is something that I do know that you do. And I'm happy that they know to call you to get this information, because you never know who's friends with who to get what information. So
Oh, don't
um,
worry. They know how to get a hold of me.
I I would hope so. Well, the way our lobbyists work, I would hope that they do everything in their ability to get you in front of whomever and needs to talk to you. So I know that our listeners are going to want to know, what do you foresee? And we're getting ready to start the fourth quarter in a week. So by the time this podcast comes out, we're going to be in the first week of the fourth quarter. What do you want us to know, think about, or is important for us as professionals going into the fourth quarter?
Well, I'm certainly in the vast majority of economists who are out there who do expect that the Fed will lower rates in September. That should have a ripple effect into the mortgage market. We should see that mortgage rates lower. Now they're not going to come down into that low range. Is it enough to move those current home sellers? I don't know. I can't frankly tell you that. What I do know though is that it certainly is going to open the credit box to some first time home buyers who would now be able to afford home buying because rates are going to come down. That's the expectation. Now, they have come down some, and I think it has moved home buyers into the market. We've certainly seen refis have gone up considerably for folks to purchase perhaps in the last year and a half. And we know that mortgage applications have also come up for potentially home buyers coming into the market too. More inventory is coming into the market. That's a good thing. We are still seeing more inventory come in because life changes happen. You can't time a baby, you can't time a marriage or a divorce to mortgage interest rates. That's not going to happen. So that is helping as well. And home builders are starting to bring some inventory, not a ton, but some inventory into the market too. And all of these things are good news. I hope that 2025 is a better year than what we have seen for 2023 and 2024 so far.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me it's not 2025 yet. Okay, I'm going to sneak in one more question. I hope we have time. Do we have like 2 minutes? Oh, we can keep going. We can keep going all day. I know you have other things to do. What do you think will take to get home builders to chill out and start building some stuff? Who needs to chill?
A lot of things. I wish there was one solution, but there's not. So one, we need skilled labor. The typical remodeler is actually skilled labor, is actually in their 50s. So yeah, encourage folks who don't want to take on student loan debt, want to start making a lot of money pretty quickly. Hey, the trades is a great profession. We desperately need them. We also need to be talking to our local governments about what funny laws are on the books. How can we think about density restrictions? How can we think about how many plants are required for every home that's built, like shrubs and trees? I know that it is the evergreen state, but come on, y'all. Also thinking about just the number of parking spaces and any goofy laws like that. And then also rates coming down should help too. And that's the big one because they have to borrow to build. And so builders are reticent when rates do go up.
Thank you so much. This has been great. And I just want to say, next time you're in Pierce County, I would like to treat you to your favorite tea, coffee, whatever. I would love it. It would make my whole day, life possibly. But thank you so much for joining us and talking about what happens behind the scenes and what type of work you do, and it reminds us how important it is for us to pay attention when we have an economist talking to us. It is not just numbers and data points, which that's why I didn't ask too much about that, because I wanted our listeners to really understand there's more to it with your job than just, hopping on TV for a couple minutes and sharing some numbers. So thank you very much for that. And thank you all for listening in. What are you going to do after this?
After this, I think I'm back to the IOI meeting. So yeah, I'm going to jump back over there.
So exciting. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds so fun. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. And as always, we do have sponsorship opportunities. We'd like to continue our Around the Block programming and bring you great information that is timeful and relevant to our industry here locally at the state level. And now we have officially hit the federal level. Episode 3. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.